Hey guys, I've got another game that I think could be pretty instructive that I played on chess.com. I'm playing with the black pieces, so let's go ahead and jump in and see what happens. So my opponent plays the move e4, and I respond with the Caro-Kann defense, and here they take the pawn, and so I go ahead and take back. My opponent then pushes the d4 pawn, I develop my knight, they develop their other knight into the center, and I get my bishop out, so pretty standard play, and right now this bishop is pinning this knight to the queen, where if the knight made some random move, then I would pick up the free queen. So then my opponent pushes the bishop, I get my other knight out. They break the pin on the queen with moving their bishop to e2. I get my other pawn out, and now they try to kick my bishop. I go ahead and drop back, and my opponent castles. Now, I could have gone ahead and pulled my bishop back to f5 on the other play, but I wanted to try to keep some pressure on this knight in case they ever decided to move this bishop. I go ahead and develop my bishop out, so now I'm preparing to castle my king. My opponent slides the rook over to e1, and now I castle my king. My opponent now activates their other rook. I pull my bishop back. They push a pawn, and here I go ahead and develop my queen here. And now I've got this battery pointed towards the king, to where if my opponent ever moved this knight, let's say some random move like this, then I would be able to force checkmate as such. But this would allow my opponent on the flip side to to win a tempo on my queen this way. The other way would have just lost a bishop, to where I would have to move back, and my opponent could then take the bishop with the knight, and then that would eliminate that threat. So in the game, my opponent hopped their knight here. I went ahead and took back. My opponent took back with the pawn, thinking, well, this looks like a fork, but nothing's defending this pawn, so I'm able to just capture with the queen. My opponent then pushes this pawn unnecessarily here. It does weaken his king a little bit, so I go ahead and trade off the light squared bishops, and so far the material's even. Now, the computer wants me to give this, but my opponent could then threaten my queen here, and if I take, they can take back with the knight and get out of this danger. So what I did was not that. I slid my queen over to f5, because if you notice, this pawn here is unprotected, and my opponent misses that the pawn was unprotected. But before I do that, I slide my bishop back to b8, and then my opponent thinks that they threatened my queen here, but now I just grab this free pawn. My opponent moves their bishop here, offering a bishop trade, but before I take it, I put my knight here, and I'm off threatening to force a checkmate, to where if my opponent takes this bishop, I could force a checkmate with queen to g2, h2, defended by my knight. The king would have to slide over, and then queen to h1 would deliver the mate. So my opponent tries to stop this, and now I go ahead and take the bishop here. My opponent takes back, but now they're really opening up their king. And I go ahead and try to anchor this knight and defend it in case I ever need to move my queen away. Now my opponent is trying to offer a queen trade here, and this is where some of the instruction can come into play. Yes, this is offering a queen trade. The material, I'm up 2 pawns right now. But unfortunately for them, they don't have anything defending this knight right here. Before, the queen was defending the knight, but since they moved it here, neither of these rooks and none of the pawns are defending it, so I can just pick up a free knight, and now I'm up a piece and 2 pawns, and I'm in a completely dominant position. My opponent once again tries to offer a queen trade, but if you look at this pawn right here, now it's undefended. A queen trade would benefit me here as well, but if you can grab material, take the material. My opponent then kicks my knight away, and I go ahead and put it on e3. I'm threatening this queen here, and the opponent can't take it with the rook because my queen would take back, and then there's a fork here to where I would win both rooks. So my opponent moves the queen out of the way, and I anchor my knight once again with this pawn. Pawn's defended by the queen, and my queen's also defending the knight. My opponent moves their rook over to e2, starting to develop it, and I slide my rook onto this file because now I've got a couple attackers on this pawn, and if I can start pushing this pawn forward, I can make a queen. My opponent grabs that pawn. That was a free pawn. Good find by my opponent. And now I push this pawn. They can't take, because if they take, then I get to take their rook here. And that would eventually lead to a checkmate. because I could do things like this, and that would just be checkmate. The only other way to stop it would be to block that way, queen there, rook there, checkmate. So my opponent cannot take that pawn, and I did realize that. And then my opponent moves the rook over here. What the computer wants now is for me to take, and take like this, because then if they take back, I can go ahead and capture that way. Actually, it wants me to take with the pawn. I apologize. Actually, it probably wants me to do something else. But I'm a 1200 ELO player. I saw a free rook, so I took the rook. My opponent captures back, but now if you notice, before, my knight was on this square here, blocking my queen's vision to this rook. But since I moved it, the king takes back. Now this rook up here is hanging. So my opponent moves their queen over to b5. They're trying to take this pawn here. And instead of taking, I go ahead and push this pawn. And this is where my opponent resigns the game, because there's nothing he can do to stop promotion without giving up this pawn, or without giving up his queen. Let's say he takes here. Well, then I'll just promote to a queen, and I'll have a quick checkmate in the future. Additionally, I could have, when he moved there, put my rook on this file, but I apologize. I would never have found this checkmate at my level. The computer would then want me to play f5, and the queen cannot take because it's defended both by this pawn and my rook. And then after any random pawn move, I would be able to get my queen into the game and then my rook and end up checkmating him. So f5 was the winning idea after that rook move. But what I saw was I'm going to push this pawn here, and that's when my opponent resigned the game, because if after any move, I would make another queen, and if they tried to defend, then I could play something. If I remember right, it went queen to, sorry, it wasn't queen to there. It was queen to e2, opponent drops back, then queen to g1, opponent drops back, and then queen to e3 would deliver the checkmate. So be careful moving pieces, thinking about what they're defending. My opponent's big mistake came right here when they took away the defense of this knight, and I was able to go up a full piece instead of just pawns. Now I've got 2 rooks and a knight and a queen, and they only have 2 rooks. And then being careful about moving other pieces. Just like here, now once my knight moves, I've got an attack on this rook here. So hopefully you understood my commentary. Hopefully it made some sort of sense. Again, I'm still working on developing my own skills, and I hope that we can keep growing and get better at chess together. So if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and maybe check out some other videos. Comment on how to keep improving on chess. Comment your ELO, and I hope you have a good day.